The Connector Next Door is your invitation to meet the natural connectors all around us. They represent the everyday event planners who are energizing their communities every single day. Their stories are familiar, fun, and full of charm. Your host, Lisa Garrow, is a lifelong event planner and has been a connection strategy coach for over a decade. She knows events can become energized connecting points where communities can gather and grow. Let's listen in as she strikes up a conversation with today's Connector Next Door.
Jay Baydala is a serial entrepreneur with 25 years experience in corporate IT project management and is making his mark as a pioneer and thought leader with 18 years in the digital social impact space. Jay's enthusiasm to shift the CSR or corporate social responsibility landscape led him to create GoodPin in 2011, a platform to help companies democratize their CSR efforts and truly engage the communities they were trying to serve. In true Jay fashion, he didn't stop there, founding Evrywork in 2018, this time on a mission to connect both co-working spaces with each other and entrepreneurs looking for co-working spaces. Like Airbnb for co-working, Evrywork has become a platform that is supporting communities and promoting needed collisions to improve society. When I first met Jay about 4 years ago, it was in a co-working space that my Candy team called home. We settled on the cool couches, lattes in hand, and a real, long-lasting, meaningful connection was born. As you'll hear in our discussion, Jay always cares about people first, and I sure felt that from our first meeting. Based in Toronto, Jay lives to experience life through friends, swimming, cycling, and travel. And thanks to Zoom, we were able to reconnect and discuss what connection means for him, but also for today's entrepreneur. Welcome, everyone, to the Connector Next Door and to today's Connector Next Door, my friend, Jay Baydala. So great to have you with me today.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure to be here with you. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. I'm going to just dive right in because that's what I do. I'm not a great small talker. So, Jay, welcome to the ride.
Thanks. Here we go. Let's get the party started.
I would love to hear from you. What does connection mean to you?
Yeah, it's a really great question because it comes to the core of what it means to be human in a lot of ways for me. And I think it's accentuated by our experience during COVID, where we haven't been able to feel as connected, because in my experience, so much of connection has to do with being in person. And I know that we've adapted, as humans do, to new ways of connecting and finding ways to connect through technology like Zoom and all these other technologies that are available. But there's something foundational for me anyway about being in a room with a human or several humans that makes my life real in some way. It lets me know that I exist. Like they talk about the fact that identity exists only in communion with others, right? If you're alone, you have no identity. Like you can't identify yourself. There is no identity. So I think it sort of taps into that. What is connection about? Is about being human.
I think the idea of identity is really fascinating to me because we sometimes, and maybe more so in the West, define ourselves by our ability to go it alone. Has this year caused you to rethink or maybe question your ability to connect well with others?
Yeah, it's tough. I got to say, like I've always, fancied myself a bit of an extrovert according to all the signals I was getting from the world. But the more I sort of investigated that personally, I realized I was more of an introvert. And then this pandemic has really accelerated that tendency within me, or maybe just revealed it within me. So I am a little nervous, quite honestly, to get back in rooms with people, and not necessarily nervous about being infected with a virus or something, but more nervous about how I behave and how I, what I say, what I do. Can I actually connect with another human still? Like I'm awkward at best of times and I say ridiculous things. So making that live in front of a human is just like, it's kind of terrifying in some ways.
And what maybe, I won't say necessarily that it terrifies me, but I think I worry sometimes because we've changed. Our
Hmm.
society has changed. And I wonder sometimes how COVID has changed or shifted the world of entrepreneurs over this last year.
Yeah, great question. Like when I think about entrepreneurship, it sort of comes back to human energy, and sort of bear with me while I try to explain why. The idea that everything that we see in the world, whether it's iPhone, headphones, a spoon, anything that we see, was an idea inside of someone's head at some point. So everything that we see is an idea at some point that didn't exist. For that thing to become real, it required human energy to come around that idea, to birth it into reality. So, in a very real sense, like I have to get someone excited about building this spoon, and raise some money because I think it's a great idea, and get people to work for the company that's going to build them, and get a factory and distribute things. So it takes a great deal of human energy to come around an idea, to bring it into the world. And that's what I think of when I think of entrepreneurship today. All of these people have sort of these incredible ideas that are coming out into their brains, and they want to bring them into reality. And I think part of it has been, a big part has been accelerated by the COVID, the pandemic, that has forced them to ask core questions about who they are, what they really want, what matters in life. And they're sort of recognizing, hey, this is important to me. This is more important than doing this other thing. I want to try this thing. So here we go, this sort of innovation, acceleration, and now where does it lead them and lead us? At the same time, we're at a point in time where technology has been accelerated because of the pandemic as well. So the technology to communicate with each other and coordinate ideas and coordinate humans to come around their idea. So it's an absolutely fascinating time to be alive, to see all of those things coming together, and wow, what's going to happen next,
And I think, like we were talking about earlier, the idea of identity, where are they finding themselves in all of it?
Yeah.
Because you have that idea, and you're crafting something amazing. We're starting a new program called the Connection Architect, and we talk a lot about the artisan in you, that it wants to refine and tweak and perfect, and you're looking at this, whatever, the spoon, the frame behind you, whatever it is, the book you're writing, you're working on that to such an extent that you're, I don't know if you feel this, Jay, sometimes when you're creating something, but it's like you're one with it. Identity is so interwoven with what we're creating, and I think it has to be. But what has, moving forward for people, learning to understand how do you manage that?
Yeah, I love what you said there. That it's interwoven, because in our culture we like to compartmentalize things. This is my work, this is my friends, this is my, me going to the gym, but it's actually all part of a whole, which goes even deeper. Like, your idea is part of you. It can't be separated from you. It's not like, oh, this is work, so I shouldn't be doing it, or I should be doing it. It's part of who you are, period, full stop, all of you. But then extend that out, and we're all connected. So every person around you is connected to that idea through you, and it just extends it broader and broader. Like the idea of connection from that idea is just phenomenal.
The ways we connect today can be overwhelming for some people, and that's what I hear too, is that there's a strong overwhelm when we're trying to determine, what are we creating, where do I fit in all of that, and how does that fit in my world, because it can be quite disruptive to the rest of the people in our lives too.
Yeah, just like anything, those connection technologies offer so much benefit, but anything extreme can be have a detrimental effect as well. So now, as a society and as a human being personally, I need to ask those questions of not just can I, but should I? So yeah, I can connect all the time. I can, get emails all night long and connect with other people and bring this idea into the world. But should I?
I love it.
Yeah, what does a good life look like to me? Right.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I hear you're just engaged and getting married.
Yes.
So that'll be an even more important question moving forward.
Yeah, exactly.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's the best part of my life. Life is great parts and harder parts, which are also great, but they're hard. This is definitely a good part.
Amazing. I'd love to hear from you because I know since I've known you, both on the charity side, the nonprofit side, kind of connecting nonprofits, now with a relatively new, it's been probably a couple of years, hey, with Evrywork, you've got an app for people to connect to the co-working spaces. So you kind of have seen it all, like there's a thread through what you do, which is why I wanted to chat with you today. But there's a thread through what you do where you're just calling on this natural connector in yourself. And if you're listening, and whether you're an introvert or an extrovert or an ambivert, I believe it actually doesn't matter how you identify that way. I think people can be incredible connectors regardless of how you show up at a party. So I would love, Jay, to hear from you. When you were younger, like, how did that show up for you? Were you the gatherer of the children and the kids in the neighborhood to, have the exciting opportunities together? Or maybe give us an example of young Jay, the connector.
Okay, well, you're going to pull this example out of me. I think only 3 people on the planet know of this, but I think as a younger person, I was very similar to the way I am now. I think I naturally connect people. I get excited about people and their stories. And I love human beings. Like I love just personally connecting. So there's that. But then on the other side of it, I resist being, put up on a pedestal or some sort of leadership position where everyone sort of expects you to do certain things. I resist that. So that tension, I think, always played out in my life. But when I think about just naturally, when I'm not thinking about it, naturally trying to bring a group of people together, I think it was grade 6 where we took the recorder, right? It's like, okay, we're learning the recorder and music. And
thanks for the great memory, but continue.
Right? So learning all these cute little songs. And it struck me that, we should put a band together. So me and 3 of my friends, I actually have a photograph somewhere of this. Me and 3 of my friends formed a recorder band, and we called ourselves the Baydala Boogiers. And let me tell you, we. So
you were the lead recorder. Like yes. you were the guy. Got it.
Okay. Exactly. I was the front man. Yeah. But if someone would have told me, Jay, you should lead this thing, I would have resisted that. But it just because it naturally happened that I didn't think about it. I wasn't self-aware, right?
Well, and I think that's where leadership sort of is a whole other conversation, but that's where leadership actually becomes really beautiful because you were in the recorder zone.
Exactly.
I raised 2 girls, I know. And I'm sure and my mother, as musical as she was incredibly gracious when I was growing up as well. I find I understand why we use the recorder, but yes. The idea of you saying, this is kind of cool, this is new, I wonder what else we could do with it. What if we brought 3 people together, not just one person? How amazing would that be? And we would rock it. We travel the world and whatever your vision for the band might have been.
Yeah.
But this is the beauty of connection. Your enthusiasm to not just learn the recorder, but bring people together and let's do this together, chances are pretty good those other two people might not have done that and then had that experience together. So how not necessarily to read too much into that, but how did you translate that into what you were creating with GoodPen, where you were connecting nonprofits to for-profit businesses and philanthropists and businesses that wanted to give back, and now Evrywork, where you've got this incredible app that's connecting not just co-working spaces in a community, but members, of the app, where now they're getting to know each other. This idea of being enthusiastic, I have a feeling, and I'm hearing, I think, from you, that you need an enthusiasm for something. It's not just, oh, I would love to create a spoon that does this, and it's about that sort of external piece that it'll make a lot of money or whatever it is. But there's something that you have to be enthused about, and then you're going to gather people, and then you're going to figure out how does that work. Is that right?
You nailed it. For me, it all starts with an idea that gets me excited, and it just so turns out it turns out that the ideas that get me actually excited, that I feel are worth doing, that I feel are worth spending my human energy on, my life on, are about people. Mm-hmm. For me, it's always been about people. And, you can blame my mom and her generous heart. You can blame just character that I was infused with from who knows where. But it's always been there. My desire is always around team, always around people, always around improving things as well, right? And to me, that necessitates bringing people together. Like we just alone, we cannot do it. Let that old overused at this point African proverb of, you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Mm-hmm. It's true. Like it's true. And you made a reference to Western culture earlier, how we're all in our own little pods and we celebrate individualism, and it's true. We do. And then we look at other cultures where it's necessary to be together and in community and with each other. And there's this beauty that comes from that required connection and required interdependence on one another. We're so independent, and in one way we don't need each other here in the West, but it's becoming evident that we do need each other, right? Like just look what's happening in the West right now with culture and governments and everything. It's not great in a lot of ways.
And I, as my daughter was showing me, we watched quite a funny show the other day, and my daughters, well, both of them are very woke is the word. One is 24 and one is 21. But we kind of make a joke of it because I grew up as the social justice warrior. That was my world. And nothing was going to stop me. I traveled the world. I was involved in my community, burnt out by the time I was 21. I moved to Calgary and went hiking and skiing. And, I just wanted to tune out. And what I think you're talking about, which is quite inspiring to me, is that if we're enthused about change, if we're enthused and excited about connecting with someone else and not having to control the outcome, but putting ourselves in a position where there is a collision, that there's an opportunity to maybe grow an idea, but maybe new things are coming out of that where I'm learning something about myself and about the world. And I don't have to attach a result to it in that moment. Trusting that there's going to be times where they're going to, whatever that was, will come to the forefront and it will fit. And I think the generation coming up, I am now over 50, hooray, where apparently I don't have to care what people think, but
Yeah, exactly.
But this idea of who is coming up, what kind of businesses are being started. And I think your story, and I would love for you to jump into that, your story of creating GoodPen, your story of creating Evrywork, the essence of those, and you could tell us a little bit for those of people that are listening that they don't know much about you or about those particular communities. I would love you to highlight how that's had this really positive difference for yourself and for those around you, and then now extending, so that ripple effect has been starting to happen through both.
Yeah, well, great. Awesome questions. So when I think about, I'll start with Goodpin. The idea came to me through a series of personal experiences that we live in a fundamentally unjust world, and I wanted to play a role in bringing a bit more justice. And to me, that meant helping the people that maybe needed the most help in one particular regard, in a financial regard, in a charitable regard. So the idea of bringing together people, brands, and charities, there seemed to be this natural synergy where everyone could win. So Goodpin is essentially a platform that lets companies put their charitable dollars in the hands of their customers to choose where it goes, democratizing their CSR. So there seemed to be a lot of power in that idea because of its simplicity and its elegance and the natural interdependence of all the different players. And it's interesting as an entrepreneur how I think anyway, the journey of an entrepreneur is probably as much, if not more, about personal development as a human than the idea or the company itself. So I've been listening to this book recently that was recommended by a friend called Who, Not How. So we've been trained to ask the question, how do I get this done in our culture? But they're reframing to start with the question of who can I ask to help me with this problem? And when you have a big enough idea, you need help. And that to me was the journey with Goodpin and with Evrywork as well, is there's this idea that I believe I want to happen that's worthy of my time and energy. And I cannot do this alone. It's too big. So who can help me with this? And that's where both initiatives started. It's like, okay, idea, great. Who can help? Who can help with this? And I think quite naturally, like I'm not a wealthy person. I don't have a lot of money, but I have a lot of personal connections, a lot of human connections, and that's my wealth. That's my currency. And so I feel very lucky to be able to think of, who can help me with this. And there's 17 people that I can think of that might fit. So yeah, that's my experience with both ventures, Goodpin and Evrywork. Idea, who can help, and bring those folks around.
So when you're bringing the people around, are you in the creation stage? Are you in the, I have an idea, it's not quite formulated, what could we do with it? Or do you actually come to the table with a fairly formulated idea and then you start to pull in the right people? Or what's your process for that?
Yeah, it at one level, it depends on the type of people that you're bringing around. But generally speaking, I think in an entrepreneurial venture, it works best to have the idea fairly well formulated, because again, you're asking humans to give some of their human energy to your idea. So they need to know what they're getting into. Like, what is the idea? Like, anyone can say, hey, I kind of want to do something cute. But people to be able to make a choice about their own human energy, to get excited themselves, they have to see the thing. Tell me what the thing is. Oh, I like that thing. I'm into that thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think more formulated is better, but then also allowing voice and empowering people along the way to change that thing.
Which is, I think, for many of us, knowing what point. So we talked a little bit earlier where we're creating things, we're kind of putting things out in the world. At what stage, and this has been always very curious for me, at what stage is the best stage to bring someone in? And I'll use a personal example. So I went through a divorce years ago, started dating again, and there's all sorts of books about how to date, with children. And so the conversation, which has become a bit of a life lesson for me, but when do you introduce the children to the person that you are, bringing into this sort of world and relationship? And one of them, and now he happens to be my husband, but one of them, I made the decision that I'd bring my girls in early, where I would have a conversation with them about things about Tim is my husband, things about Tim, things about what he likes. Like I just started feeding some of the ideas of what this relationship could look like. And obviously, this is not a relationship show, so whatever works for you. But for me, I took that to heart, because I think sometimes when we're creating, and again, I'm speaking about myself, I would actually squirrel away, create for months. I would create something, put it out in the world, and I'm like, why is nobody caring? Why is nobody adopting this beautiful baby I just had? where I haven't brought people along on that road with me.
Yeah, great points. Absolutely great points. People have to, I think people have to have enough of your idea communicated that they can get excited about the idea, and but then also have a voice along the way. So things that come up for me are process, right? Process is crucial, and humility to know that putting an idea into the world doesn't have to be fully formed, but putting the general idea out into the world sooner than later is good, because even if you did fully form it and you invite others in, it is going to change. It has to change, like it has to. So having the humility to let go of, where that's headed, because now you're involving these other people. But again, back to that proverb, that's the way you go far instead of just fast. That's
Love
the way
it.
you create something epic, is by letting those voices in and creating a process that allows that, and then letting go of the thing, right?
And
Now
I
it's
love how,
not your thing. No,
sorry,
go ahead.
go ahead. I was just going to say, I love the word humility. I love the word, like, I think sometimes when we try to control things so thoroughly, any one of us would feel like, I'm out,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I obviously don't have a place here. I don't have a role or whatever it is, and it's not that I'm trying to change your idea, but if
No.
there isn't a playground that we're all sort of in, and moving and finding spaces to have new conversations in that, you won't get the best of the best. You won't get people that are willing to take the long distance with you, which is
Yeah.
what you're saying about, do you want to just, create something for today? And again, we talk about events, and this conversation is very much for the everyday event planners. It's not just about that one event. It's about, how are you actually including people in the process? How are you bringing people to the table to have bigger conversations? And it'll make your event better or your campaign better, but it'll also create relationships that have a different kind of dynamic.
Yeah, absolutely. It fundamentally shifts things when people have agency and voice, right? So you can look at the other side of that. In most corporations, why do people feel frustrated and empty and soulless? Because they don't have voice in the outcomes of that particular organization. But if you give people some way that their thoughts and their efforts, they can connect that to what's happening in that corporate initiative, then you've really got something. And when you talk about events, it's the exact same thing. It's like, how do I give the participants agency and voice in what we're creating together? And it comes back to, for me anyway, like, I have this idea, whether it's an event or whether it's a corporate idea, whether it's a spoon. I have this idea, but it's not my idea. Like it's not. It's like, here's the idea. Can this be our idea? And that's one of the bigger lessons I've learned along the journey of entrepreneurship, is relinquishing that idea, and not just not just in a symbolic way, but in a fundamental core way, like where I actually don't think this is mine. Like it's not mine, it's ours, and even beyond the team, it's ours, like the world's, right? So it just keeps
And
going out.
and even for teams that are currently working together, maybe you're an in-house team putting together events and promotions. Even with your in-house team, putting something on the table and not having to take ownership over it. Jay, you and I have to have that conversation again, because I think
Yeah,
there's something about that as well, where we are all wanting to become better people, have better ideas, fulfill on what we're saying we're going to do, but it does take a releasing, which I love where you've taken us in this conversation, Jay. I think we're in a space right now where people are reinventing themselves. What you have through Evrywork in particular right now, I am now a new current member, but I would love to end on a little story, because I was at a co-working space here in Calgary yesterday, and they gave me this. It's called the collision desk. They gave me a little sign, so it was like, if you travel, my kids used to travel alone, and they had the giant A. It's like unaccompanied minor. So I get the sign that I am new here, and it's called the collision desk. And so there was a fellow that was sitting behind me. There's not too many people in this space yet, but he comes up to me. We're having this great conversation. He's like, "So is this Evrywork?" And it happened to be, Jay, one of your old friends that is part of a funding organization that helped you fund Evrywork years and years ago. And it
amazing.
was really amazing to me. And what he said to me, which is why I wanted to kind of end on this, because what he said to me, it's not often we get to see the end result of what we do in our funding. So they're funding startups and entrepreneurs and great ideas. And he said, which is another sort of for another time, but this 300% increase on startups and entrepreneurs really starting to build things, or coming into entrepreneurship for the first time. But he was saying that I personally was the result of that funding. And it was just this cool full circle, because I said, you wouldn't believe it, but I'm interviewing Jay tomorrow. And we just had this moment of, and it literally was the collision desk.
Yeah,
So
I love
so
that.
what you put in motion, all that time and energy and money and all that stuff that you've invested in the past, brought me to that place where now we're actually talking about, well, where else could I be, investing as a connection coach for them, or for different things that they're working on.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. It's like one massive network of human energy, and you give and you receive, and it's dynamic, and that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. It makes, that there's a few rewards along the journey of entrepreneurship, and that is, hearing that story is one of them. Thank you very much for letting me know that the thing that we've put into the world is doing what we intended. It's helping entrepreneurs connect with other entrepreneurs.
And it speaks to what you were just saying about it. You have to let it go. You have to have a life. It needs a life of its own to breathe and grow and change. Our kids do the same thing. So where do we allow that growth to happen?
Yeah, what a great analog. Children, that's a great analog. Yeah, they're not your children. They're children that have been given to you to shepherd into the world. Yeah. Oh,
Exactly. And they're off doing their thing. So
yeah.
Jay, I could talk to you all day long. I'll need to wrap up for today. Where can people find you if they want to learn more about Goodpin, Evrywork, or anything else that you're working on? Continue this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. You can always find me on LinkedIn, Jay Baydala, or you can check out either of those two companies. Good.pn is the Goodpin URL, and Evrywork.com, EVRY, Evrywork.com.
Perfect. I have so loved this time together with you, Jay. Thank you. There will be other conversations, because I've been sort of in my head filing a couple of those great jumping off points. But for today, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, always great to talk with you, and I look forward to the next one with you. Thank you.
Fantastic. Have a great day.
You too.
The Connector Next Door podcast is produced by Candy Event Consulting. where everyday event planners and their teams gain clarity, get connected, and grow in confidence. Subscribe at www.candyconsulting.ca to hear visits with everyday event planners who are putting connections first.